Welcome to my channel, Knitting for Baby. Thanks so much for watching. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit this beautiful summer baby dress. It's for baby girls between 6 and 9 months old, but you can easily make it smaller or bigger from 0 to 3 months and up to 24 months. In the information box below, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. And as always, if you prefer a written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop up here on the right hand side and in the information box below. Thank you so much for your support. Now, to make this little dress, this is the yarn that I used. This is a number 4 yarn. You can also use 12 ply or Aran weight yarn. And actually, you can also use DK weight yarn. I made this other little dress here using DK weight. This one is slightly bigger. The only difference is the number of stitches that I cast on and the number of rows that I did for the body and for the skirt. In the information box, you'll find that information. Now, this yarn here is in a different color, but for this little dress, the color is lemonade, and I believe the color number is 03. Yes, pink lemonade. For the 6 to 9 month size, I used about 174 grams in the main color and about 5 grams in the secondary color. You will need less or more depending on the size that you make. You will also need 4 18mm size buttons, and if you want to make this little strawberry, in my channel I already have a tutorial on how I make them, so I'll go ahead and leave you the link down here in the information box below. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe, activate the notifications bell. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, to begin and knit this little dress, I'll be using these 4mm circular knitting needles. These are 16-inch long. You can also use longer knitting needles and just knit the little dress in the round using the magic loop technique. Now, the yarn that I'm using is this medium number 4 yarn. You can also use any Aran weight or 10 ply. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I'm using and I told you how much yarn we're going to need for the size that we're making here. Now, this yarn here is not as thick as a number 4, so I think you can also use DK weight or number 3 yarn. As you can see, it's not too thick, so I think you can use a slightly lighter weight yarn. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to cast on our stitches. We're going to cast on a total of 80 stitches. Here I'm going to show you how to cast on your stitches using the long tail cast on method. Now, because these needles are really short, I always like to cast on my stitches using both needles. So instead of using these 2 needles here, I'm going to add this other needle here to help. So the first thing that we need to do with the long tail cast on method is we need to measure the yarn. So here I'm just going to wrap the yarn around both needles like this 20 times. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have enough yarn for about 20 stitches. Now remove this. I'm going to double this up. I have enough for about 40. Double it up again. I have enough for about 60. And double it up again. I have enough for about 80. Now add a bit more, about that much. I always like to add more because I don't want to repeat this here again. And here all you do is just make a slip knot. Now insert both needles. Now, the reason why I use 2 needles like this to cast on my stitches is because I want the first row to be nice and loose. We don't want it to be too tight, and with both needles like this, it helps with that first row there. So here is the yarn that we just measured, and this here is coming from the skein. Now open up the yarn, and we're going to go from left to right, and we're going to grab a loop like this. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on until you have a total of 80 stitches. Continue. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting on my stitches. I have 80 on my knitting needles. Now I'm going to add an extra stitch, but this stitch will not count. It's just so that we can join in the round. So add 1 extra stitch here. I have 81 stitches. Now carefully remove that second needle if you're using both needles like I am. Now, here to begin, I'm going to put my working yarn here on the right needle. I'm going to push my stitches here to the end of this needle here, and to join in the round, I'm going to bring this first stitch onto the right needle. Now bring the last stitch over like this and drop it. Drop that last stitch, and now all you do is just pull this yarn, and that stitch is going to close. Now, before you continue, I recommend that you add a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the row. So here to begin, we have the first stitch. I'm going to knit 1. Now the next stitch, purl. The next stitch, knit, and then purl. Here we're going to be doing a 1 by 1 ribbing for the body. So that it looks like this. The inspiration for this little dress came from these little pants that I did. This part here is going to be at the top of the chest, and then this here is going to be around the waist. So we're going to be doing this part here. I'm not sure how many rows we're going to do, but it all depends on the measurement that I get after I do a couple rows here. So we'll figure that out. So here to continue, all you do is, this here is a knit, so the next one is a purl. So knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And that's how we're going to continue here until I finish this first row. Continue, I'll meet you at the end. I finished the first row where I knit 1, purl 1. Now make sure that this last stitch is a purl stitch. If for some reason you have a knit stitch, then somewhere along this first row you have messed up. Make sure that it's a purl stitch. Now pass your stitch marker. From here on, we're going to repeat the same thing. You knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And that's how we're going to continue for this part. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. So continue and repeat knit 1, purl 1 all around for all of these rows, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished making this part. I did a total of 32 rows. It's measuring from top to bottom about 12 centimeters, which is about 4.75 inches. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to continue with the skirt of the dress. But before we do that, we need to increase here. So to do this, here's my beginning of the row stitch marker. I'm going to knit 1, then yarn over. Knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 1. This is how I'm going to continue for this first row of the skirt. So all you do is just knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. Continue, finish this row. I will meet you at the end. I finished making this first row. At the end of this row, with this last yarn over here at the end, I have a total of 160 stitches. Now pass your stitch marker. Don't forget to yarn over here at the end. And now for row 2 of the skirt, what we're going to do is just knit across. So beginning here with this first stitch, you're going to knit the yarn overs. Also, we're going to knit. So all of these stitches for the second row of the skirt, we're going to knit. Continue like this and finish this second row. I'll meet you at the end. I finished row 2. In this row, I knit all around, including the yarn overs. I have a total of 160 stitches. Now for row 3, all we're going to do is just knit all around, and for the rest of the skirt, all we're going to do is just knit. We're going to continue here with the stockinette stitch. That is where you knit every stitch all around. And at the end of each row, we're always going to have 160 stitches. Now, I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do for the skirt, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. I'm going to place a stitch marker here to mark the row. So continue watching. I will let you know how many rows. So I'll meet you at the end of that row. I finished making the skirt of the little dress. Now I only did 56 rows, but if you want to make it longer, you can. You can just continue and make more rows. Now what I'm going to do is the hem. Now for the hem here, I'm going to change the stitch up a little bit. I'm going to continue with the garter stitch. For the garter stitch, when you knit in around, we're going to knit one row and then we're going to purl the next. Knit, purl, knit, purl. So here I already have the last row, which was a knit row. So in this row, row 57, I am going to purl across. Make sure that your stitch marker is in the same place as you started here, so that this part here is now going to be the back side, and this part here is going to look even. So purl across like this, and that's how I'm going to continue for row 57. Just purl across. I'll meet you at the end of this row. I finished row 57. That is where I purled across. Now for row 58, I'm going to just knit across, and I'm going to alternate between these two rows. One row purl, one row knit. And I'm going to do this, I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 rows. Continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do here of garter stitch. Remember, for garter stitch, when you knit in the round, you have to alternate between a row of knit and a row of purl. So continue like this and continue watching. I will let you know how many rows we're going to do. So I'll meet you at the end of that row. I'm almost done with the hem. I have done a total of 11 rows. So row 57 was a purl row, row 58 a knit row, 59 purl, 60 knit, 61 purl, 62 knit, 63 purl, 64 knit, 65 purl, 66 knit, 67 purl. So I'm at the end of row 67 where I purled. Now for row 68, I am going to cast off my stitches. So in total, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 garter stitch rows here. Remember that garter stitch rows consist of 2 rows here. So now to cast off, this would be row 68. Here I'm going to knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, bring this first stitch over the second stitch, and again knit one, bring this first stitch over the second, knit the next stitch, bring the second stitch over, and this is how we're going to cast off our stitches. If you want to make this part here wider, you can add more rows. I'm just going to do these 11 rows here where I knit one row and then purl the next. So continue, finish casting off your stitches, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished casting off my stitches. Now here's the last stitch. Cut your yarn and just pass your yarn through this last loop. Now I'm going to show you how to join to the beginning of the row. So we're going to need here a yarn needle. We're going to go here to the very first stitch. I'm going to go right here, actually to the second stitch that you cast off. Right there, insert your needle like this, and then go through the top of the last stitch that you cast off. And this way we are joined. Now here on the inside of the little dress, you're going to hide this end. Like that, and then just cut your yarn. So this part is done. This is how it looks. And here's the little dress. This is the bottom. There it is. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to make the straps. So we're going to go here to the back side, and here is this tail end that it was left from when we cast on our stitches. Now we're going to be counting our knit columns. So right here, right in the center, I have this tail end. So this would be the center column here along the back side. So from this column, count the next knit column. So 1, 2, and right in the middle in the purl column, put a stitch marker here on this side. And then from this stitch marker, you're going to count 3 knit columns. 1, 2, 3, and in the purl column right here, insert a stitch marker. So here we're going to be adding 7 stitches for this strap here on the left side, and for the right side we're going to do the same thing. You're going to go back to the center column and then count 1, 2, and in the purl column put a stitch marker, then count 1, 2, 3 knit columns, and in the purl column that follows put a stitch marker. So we have 3 knit columns in between these stitch markers on the right side, and 3 knit columns here in between the stitch markers for the left side. So we're going to start with the left side. So now insert your needle here where we have the first stitch marker along the very edge, right there with a crochet hook. I think this is going to be easier because all we need to do here is just grab a loop here, bring it through. Right there. Now insert the needle there. And now we're going to pick up a total of 7 stitches. So in the next row, which is a knit row, right through the middle, insert the needle and pick up a stitch there. That's 2. In the next row, which is a purl row, pick up another stitch. In the next row, which is a knit row, pick up another stitch. In the next row, which is a purl row, pick up another stitch. And in the next row, which is a knit row, pick up another stitch. And the last stitch is going to be here. This is the purl column, so pick up a stitch there. So here I have 7 stitches. Now we're going to turn. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit this first stitch, but only for this row. So knit the first stitch, then purl the next. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and knit the last stitch, but only for this row. Now turn. Here I'm going to slip this first stitch, and then I'm going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Turn. Slip the first stitch. Purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. There. Turn. And again, slip the first stitch. This is the right side. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, or purl the last stitch. Turn, slip the first stitch. This is the wrong side. And purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. And this is how we're going to continue here for the strap here of the dress. Make sure that you always turn and slip the first stitch. And as you can see, this is how it looks. I'm going to continue and do this. I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here. It all depends on the measurement that I get. But continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. So continue and I'll meet you at the end of that row. Okay, I'm almost done with the strap. I have done a total of 42 rows. Row 42 was worked on the wrong side, counting from the very beginning. Row 1 would have been the first row where we picked up the stitches. So here for row 43, which is going to be on the right side, I'm going to make my first buttonhole. In total, I'm going to make 2 buttonholes, but you can make just 1. In the other tutorial, the Spanish tutorial, I only added 1 buttonhole and then I continue and made 4 more rows. You can easily adjust the length of the strap. Right now it's measuring about 6 inches, so you may want to try this on your little girl and make sure that you have the correct length. And you can also continue with just 1 buttonhole and make 4 more rows and then just cast off your stitches, or continue how I'm going to make my straps here, where I'm going to make 2 buttonholes for my little dress. So to do this buttonhole, because I'm using these pretty big buttons, I'm going to do the following here. I am going to slip the first stitch. I'm going to knit the next stitch and then purl one. Now I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to knit 2 together through the back like this. And now I'm going to knit 1 and then purl the last stitch. Now I'm going to turn on the wrong side, slip the first stitch, purl the next stitch, and then knit 1. There. So we have a slip stitch, a purl, a knit stitch, and this stitch here I need to purl like this. Now I'm adding these big buttons. These are about 15-16 millimeter size. These are the buttons that I'm using. Let's see. There's no size there, but I'll go ahead and measure these once we're done and I'll tell you what size they are at the end of the video when I give you the finished measurements. Now I'm going to continue with the next stitch. That's a knit stitch, then purl, and then knit. And this is row 44, which was worked on the wrong side. Now turn for row 45, which is going to be worked on the right side. Slip the first stitch, turn, knit the next stitch, then purl, then knit, then purl, then knit, and then purl the last stitch. Now I'm just going to continue from here on and add a couple more rows in between the next buttonhole so that I have 2 buttons here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my first button right about here and then the next one right about here. You can move the buttons up or down depending how this fits on your little girl. So I'm going to add 2 buttonholes here. So continue watching. I will let you know how many rows I'm going to do, and then I'll show you how to make the second buttonhole. I did a total of 17 rows. I just finished row 60, which was worked on the wrong side. So now for row 61, which is going to be on the right side, I'm going to add the second buttonhole. The first buttonhole was added on row 43. So to begin here and do the second buttonhole, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to slip the first stitch, then knit 1, purl 1. Now we're going to yarn over and knit 2 together, then knit 1, purl 1. Here's the second buttonhole, and here's row 61. And now turn for row 62. Row 62 is on the wrong side, so slip the first stitch. You're going to purl 1, knit 1, the yarn over we're going to purl, and then knit 1, purl 1, knit the last stitch. And from here on I'm just going to continue and make, I don't know, 4 or 5 rows here. This is going to be the end, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this continue watching. I will let you know how many rows I'm going to do. Okay, I did a total of 5 more rows, so that put me at row 66. So now for row 67, which is on the right side, I'm going to cast off my stitches. So to do this, this is what we're going to do. So here I'm going to slip the first stitch, knit the next stitch. This here is on the right side, by the way. And now just bring the first stitch over the second, purl the next stitch, bring the first stitch over the second, knit the next, bring the first stitch over the second, purl the next, bring the first stitch over, knit the next, bring the stitch over, and purl the last stitch, bring this stitch over. Now cut your yarn and just pass your yarn through this last loop, and this part here is done. There it is. Now let me give you the measurement. It's almost 10 inches, which is about 25 centimeters. So this here is done, and once the little dress is done, I'm going to go ahead and attach one button right here, and then the next one right about here, and then you can always adjust the buttons as the baby grows to adjust the length here of the strap. Now we're going to do the second strap, so I'm going to show you. So here is the center. This is our reference so that you can count your knit column. So we have 1, 2, and then we have a stitch marker here into the purl column, and then I have 1, 2, 3 knit columns in between the stitch markers, and then the next column, which is the purl column, I have put my stitch marker. So now we're going to do the second strap, and same thing, we're going to go right here. I'm going to use a crochet hook to pull my yarn through. So pull the yarn like this, insert the needle there. Now go in the middle of the next column, which is the knit column, right in the middle of that very first stitch at the very top, and pick up a stitch there. You can use a crochet hook if it's easier to pull your loops through. I think I'll do that. So I'm having a hard time here. There. And then go into the next column, which is a purl column, and pick up another stitch there. Go in the middle of the next column, which is a knit column, and pick up another stitch. Make sure to insert the needle right through the very center of that stitch. And then the next column is a purl column, so pick up another stitch there. In the next column, which is a knit column, right in the middle of that first stitch, insert the needle and pick up another stitch. Here we have 6 stitches, we need 1 more, so we're going to go right here in the purl column and pick up a stitch. There, I have 7 stitches, and now we're just going to repeat the same thing we did with the first strap. I'm going to turn, I'm going to knit the first stitch, and I'm going to purl the next, knit the next, purl the next, knit the next, purl the next, and then knit the last stitch. Pull this yarn here so that that stitch is not too big. Now turn for row 2, and from here on, we slip the first stitch, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Turn for row 3, slip the first stitch, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit the last stitch. Turn for row 4. I'm just going to show you this last row here. Slip the first stitch, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl the last stitch, and so on. And that's how you're going to continue for the second strap. It's done exactly in the same way how we did the first one. So finish the second strap, do it exactly in the same way how I showed you here, and then I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished making the second strap. I did it exactly in the same way how we did the first one. I also went ahead and attached my buttons. These buttons are 18mm size, and I purchased these strawberry buttons from Hobby Lobby, and all I did was just attach them here to the back. They're just tied. I just cut a piece of yarn and then I just tie them here to the back side. Make sure you do a couple knots so that they don't come off, and then just hide your ends on the inside. So the little dress is all done. Now I'm going to show you how to do this part here. You need a crochet hook and some yarn. This part here, it's optional. As it is the little dress, it's all done. But if you want to do it how I did mine, this is how we're going to do it. So here, to begin, you're going to attach the yarn here to the back side, bring a loop through, chain 3, and then skip 2 stitches. You can see the stitches right there. 1, 2, and then make a slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 2 stitches again, make a slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 2 stitches, make a slip stitch. So here I'm almost done with this part, so I'm going to show you how it's done. So here I already have 1 chain, so chain 3, skip 2 stitches, and the stitches that I'm counting are these stitches here. You can see them. 1, 2. So skip those 2 stitches and then insert your hook and make a slip stitch. I'm using this 3.5mm hook, and this yarn is DK weight yarn. You can also use number 3 or a ply. Now chain 3 again, skip 2 stitches. See, 1, 2, and in between the next 2, insert your hook and make a slip stitch. Chain 3, and here at the end all I do is just insert my hook in the same spot where I started, grab a loop, cut your yarn, and pass your yarn through this last loop, and all you do now is just hide this tail end here on the inside. So this part here is done, and that's how it looks. Now I'm going to do the same thing here around the straps and here around the front of the little dress. So to do this, I'm going to use the same yarn. I'm going to go here along the back side. Remember, here along the back side, this center column of knit stitches is where we started counting here for either side of the straps. So insert your hook right here, right in the very middle of that of the back side, grab a loop, bring it through. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do this. I know many people don't know how to crochet, but I think that it's easy to do it. So here you're going to chain 3, and here we're going to skip the row of purls, and we're going to go right in the middle of the knit row and make a slip stitch. Chain 3, skip the purl row, and we'll go right in the middle of the knit stitch right there. And now we're going to work our way up along the side here of the strap. So chain 3, I'm going to go right here along the very edge and find that first stitch. So it's right there, and make a slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 1 stitch here and into the next, right there through both loops, insert your hook and make a slip stitch. Chain 3, skip 1 row and into the next, make a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, skip one row, and into the next make a slip stitch. And that's how I'm going to continue all around the strap. When I get here, I'm going to keep the same thing here. I'm probably going to end right here along the very edge, chain 3, and right in the middle make a slip stitch, chain 3, and then right here into this last stitch along the very edge, I'm going to make a slip stitch and then continue working the other side of the strap. And that's how I'm going to continue all around until I come here. Here I'm going to make sure to make my slip stitches right in the middle of the knit row right there. So I'm going to skip the purl rows, and right in the middle of this very first knit stitch, I'm going to insert my hook and make my slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, and so on all around, and then do the same thing for the second strap. Continue, finish this part, and I'll meet you here at the end to show you the finished baby dress. I finished making this last row all around. Here at the end, I just joined to the beginning with a slip stitch, cut my yarn and passed my yarn through that last loop, and I just hid my ends on the inside. So the little dress is all done. This is how it looks. Here's the skirt. Here's the back side with the straps. And here's the skirt. Now, as you can see, I went ahead and attached my buttons. I used 2 buttons on either side. These buttons here are 18mm size, and I purchased these buttons from Hobby Lobby. Now, you can also just add 1 buttonhole, just like I did with this other little dress. This one here was done exactly in the same way. The only difference is that this one is a little bit bigger, but it's done exactly in the same way. So now let me give you the finished measurements. So this part here, the chest measurement without stretching, it's measuring about 15 centimeters, which is about 6 inches, just the top. Once you stretch it, this here accommodates the 9-month size, which is about 25 centimeters or about 9.75 inches. Now this measurement from top to bottom, about 12 centimeters, which is about 4.75 inches. The skirt from here up to here, it's about 10 inches, which is about 25.5 centimeters. And the width of the skirt, I just measured from here to here right across, so you have an idea of how wide the skirt is. It's about 17 inches, which is about 43.5 centimeters. And the straps, they're measuring about 10 inches, which is about 25.5 centimeters. So again, based on these measurements, this little dress here is for little girls between 6 and 9 months. You can easily make it smaller or bigger. In the information box below, I'll go ahead and leave you some information on how you can easily make it smaller or bigger, so be sure to check that out. Here's that other little dress that I did. This one here is for 9 to 12 months, and really the only difference is about 4 stitches. Here for the top, I cast on an extra 4 stitches, and I did an extra 4 rows for the body, and then for the skirt I made it as long as I want. You can easily adjust the length of the skirt. You can make it longer or shorter, that would be up to you. Along with the straps, you can make them shorter and just add 1 buttonhole on either side, or make 2 as I did here. Now I plan to add this little strawberry here because I think this color is perfect for that. In my channel, I already have a tutorial on how I make these beautiful strawberries, so I'll go ahead and leave the link to a tutorial that I did where I show how to make the strawberries, so make sure to check that out. And as always, if you prefer written pattern, check out my Etsy shop. I'll leave the link to my Etsy shop in the information box below. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.